almost 2 hours in. It's a 3-hour ride. I'm doing it fasted, so I just had coffee, and I'm just having water and electrolytes. So I'll be running 6K fast after this workout. So what I plan to do is start having some carbs at the 2.5 hour mark, just so I have some extra energy available for the run. I've been experimenting with carbohydrate timing on my diet. I don't follow a specific diet, but I definitely try to target the exact moments where I know I'll be needing carbs, and that's how I've gotten my best results so far. I also want to give some background about what's going on behind this blood glucose monitor, what we know about it, and what I think Jan is doing and many other elite endurance athletes are doing as well. As we all should probably know, blood glucose monitors, they're used for diabetes. So people with diabetes constantly monitor the glucose levels in their bloodstream so they can take insulin just to downregulate the amount of glucose in their bloodstream. So doctors consider a person to be in a healthy range when fasting blood glucose is at around 100 milligrams per deciliter. When they start seeing people at the 140s, even 130s, they start prescribing insulin. We know that this technology is being implemented into the endurance world. So we see, as I said, runners running sub 2 hours marathons using it, the guy breaking the Ironman world record using it. What we're seeing right now is that guys like Jan on this last race are using a kind of a sticker that they put on their tricep here. So instead of using the little device that diabetics use and that I also use to monitor my blood glucose, he's using something that's constantly there. So he just tracks it with his smartphone. He just tracks it whenever he wants. And there are also devices like Garmin watches that are already showing glucose levels. So there's people already tracking that during a bike ride, during a run. So that's already happening. We have 40,000 calories worth of fat stored in our bodies against 2,000 calories worth of glycogen. My takeaway from what I've learned after 4 years of doing this is that everybody is different. So I couldn't say that this works for everyone, but there are a lot of strategies that I've applied myself just to be able to go through part of the 40,000 calories of fat that I have constantly stored and spare the very little 2,000 calories that I have of glycogen stored in my muscles and liver. So I try to spare that for when the right time comes, and that's, I'm guessing, what Ian is tracking as well, because a guy like this that is executing everything at the highest possible level has to be tracking every little thing just to get marginal gains. With this type of rides, I try not to go too easy, but just where I feel that the body is adapting, but still feels pretty manageable. Jan was actually between 100 and 110 during the time that we're actually showing his levels, 2 or 3 hours into a very hard bike ride where he's had to put a lot of work just to get that far at that speed. But it would make no sense if we try to compare that to like from a clinical standpoint, we couldn't say that that 100 and 110 has to do anything with the levels that doctors look for in diabetic patients. If I had to guess, I would say that they're tracking exactly the amount of glucose that his body is putting out there for him to use as energy. So those 107 or 110 or 100 milligrams per deciliter just mean that his blood glucose levels are not that high, as you could see some other people going at 150 or 160 while putting a lot of workout. So what that means is that he's not using glucose in the same way that probably a guy that has less ability to burn fat than My first conclusion is that he relies a lot on fat. So his fat burning threshold, if you can call it that way, is very high compared to other athletes. So the percentage of fat and carbs that he's burning has to be really impressive, and that is why we can see fairly low levels of glucose during the race. It's a pretty long ride considering it's indoor, so I don't want to push it too much. Plus I have a run that's gonna be fairly fast, so I want to keep myself for that last part of the workout. Probably when he's 2 or 1.5 hours into the marathon, between 5 and 6 hours of racing, his glucose levels are going to be higher because he's going to be needing a lot more energy from whatever he has stored in his glycogen stores. So he's going to be at a higher level because his body is giving him access to a higher amount of glucose, plus the stress that is generated by the exercise he's putting out. We didn't get to see it, but if we saw his glucose levels at the marathon, they should have been way higher because of the effort he's putting out, the amount of glycogen that he needs by that stage of the race, and the stress that his body is subject to. I've seen in the past 2 weeks like Joe Skipper, Sam Long, and even Lionel Sanders talking about how they want to burn fat and not burn through the sugar that they have available. So this is something that is definitely out there. They are relying on this information just to try and find a way to go longer and bunk less, if you could say it that way. So that fat burning threshold that I was referring to is the ability to go burn fat or burn the highest amount of fat possible, even when going at high efforts. They're absolutely tracking how much fat he's burning throughout a certain workout or race in this case, and how much carbs he's actually needing to perform at his best level. They're trying to build a new metric that improves their performance, because we've only seen so far glucose from a clinical standpoint, as I mentioned already, but there's people working on actually improving performance at the highest level. Even though glycogen is the preferred source, I think we need to teach our bodies just to go on survival mode, especially if we're focused on long distance events, because at the back half of every race we're going to have a big advantage over people that are not able to access the fat they have stored in their bodies, and that's what's going to matter the most. So if we're talking about a 10-minute race or a 2-minute race or a 100-meter sprint, this is not going to make any difference. But if you're like me and you're focused on health first of all, and then on long distance events, then I think this is a great way to start. You can start for as cheap as $15. I feel that I've been thriving since I've actually started using carbs in the most efficient way that I've figured. So I'm going to be sharing that. I'm going to be sharing the specific and details. So subscribe to the channel if you guys are interested in any of this. I would highly appreciate it, and share with anyone that might be interested. Just let me know if you've had any experience with limiting carbs, with trying some sort of fasting for a specific workout, if you guys follow like a time restricted feeding strategy, or if you guys have limited carbs somehow, or if you guys are vegan and want to share with me whatever you're doing, that would be great. I just want to learn, and that's part of why I'm on this YouTube journey. So I hope to hear from you guys. I'll see you in the next video, which is actually going to be a really fun one and different, so go ahead and watch it.